Okay. We're almost caught up, honestly. We're not too far away, but it's not going to play out until next week because since we don't learn on Fridays, I still have to do a blot and a half Thursday night and Sunday and Saturday night. But then starting this coming week on Sunday, we'll be doing Emir Hashem, one blot throughout the week, and then we should be all set. So tonight we're going to be learning Mem Gimel, Amud Beis, and Mem Daled. Yesterday, if you recall, we were learning about the Shita of Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak was of the opinion, and I'm reading right now from the first of the very long lines of Mem Gimel Amud Aleph. That's not where we're starting from. I just want to review his Shita. Kasavar ein kli nital ela ladavar hanital b'Shabbos. You're only allowed to take a kli and use it for something that is in and of itself an act that's permissible for Shabbos. If you don't have that going for you, you're not allowed. You cannot, for example, one of the many examples, take a kli and put it under a candle that's dripping oil. So that would not be allowed if you did it once Shabbos started. Before Shabbos, it's fine, but on Shabbos, it's not allowed. If something during Ben Hashmashos was permissible for you to use, remember the principle we learned yesterday, Migud is katsoy le Ben Hashmashos, is katsoy le kol hayom kula, that once something's muktzah during Ben Hashmashos, you cannot use it. But if it was mutter during Ben Hashmashos, that kli cannot then be used for something that is muktzah. That's the shita of Rabbi Yitzchak. So we asked a bunch of questions, and we're actually going to continue asking one lengthier question here until we get to the end of this particular sugya, and then we'll see a correlating shita that actually was learned in Bavel. So let's get started. Where are we? We are 3 lines from the bottom on Mem Gimel Amud Aleph. Asks the Gemara, remembering, of course, that Rabbi Yitzchak holds that you can only use a kli on Shabbos for something which is mutter. Says the Gemara, Tashma porsen machatzel sal gabe kaveres devorim b'Shabbos. You're allowed to take a blanket of some kind and cover a bee's nest, a honeycomb, so that you can have you can be protected, I guess, and you can maybe save some of the honey. Says the Gemara continues in this case, whether it's in the summer or in the winter. The Gemara is going to say bees don't live in the winter, so we'll have to see how that plays out. And then the final line of this Torah Satanaim, of this case of the honeycomb, is bilvan shelo yiskaven latzud. This is only true if you don't have intention to actually trap. Let's get into the sugya. Hacha b'maya skinan. Why is this a question against Rav Yitzchak? The question is that this is not shaykh to you, it's muksa. You're not allowed to touch this. Hacha b'maya skinan. When is it that one is allowed, even according to Rav Yitzchak, who holds that, let me just get the language again, ein kli nital elo l'davar hanital b'Shabbos, that you can only use a utensil for that which is mutter on Shabbos. Why are you allowed to do that here with the beehive? After all, the beehive itself has nothing to do with you, and it's muksa. What are you going to do with the beehive? Answers the Gemara, the Ika Dvash, last line, then Gimel Amud Aleph, because there's still honey in there. That honey is usable. There's no problem of nolad. It's not like an apple that falls off a tree on Shabbos, which is completely usher, because the honey was there beforehand. Not only that, but honey was just once it leaves the flower on the bee and then it's brought into the beehive, it's perfectly permissible to eat, no problem at all. So that's the Gemara's answer to Ika Dvash. Amar le Rav Ukva mimishan le Rav Ashi. Here's the following question that Rav Ukva asks to Rav Ashi. Teinach, I could understand bimosachama. I got it. I understand that there could be honey in the honeycomb, in the beehive during the summer. I got it. Turning to the top of Mem Gimel Amud Beis, to Ika Dvash, because that's when bees are around. Just think about the end of Sukkot. There are bees all over the place. So what do you think they're doing? They're pollinating. They're taking pollen. They're going back to the beehive. They're stealing food from our Sukkot tables, and then they go back. So I could understand that. Bimosag shamim deleka dvash ma'ika lememar. But your answer only goes so far, because during the winter there are no bees, and if there are no bees, then there is no honey. And if there's no honey, then we're back to our original question against Rabbi Yitzchak, which is that Rabbi Yitzchak doesn't allow the usage of a kli, which is allowed to be used on Shabbos, for something that's muksa. How then, asks the Gemara against Rabbi Yitzchak, are you allowed to cover this beehive with anything? It's muksa. You're making that tarp, you're making that covering muksa. Answers the Gemara, lo nitzracha You're right that there isn't a lot of honey. However, there are two sections, two units, I guess. This is how the bees work. Rashi here discusses this. I want to just save some time. But basically, the bees kept two collections of honey, and that honey is still honey. They lived off of it throughout the course of the winter. They don't all day out. I don't know exactly what the I'm not an entomologist. I don't know how all the bees work, but that's the answer here, is that there was some honey there. And that's why even during the winter, one would be allowed to cover a beehive, even according to Rabbi Yitzchak. Says the Gemara, you're not allowed to utilize that honey. That honey has nothing to do with you. It's just to keep the bees alive. Says the Gemara, it's when you had specific intent about these two sources of honey that are within the honeycomb. Says the Gemara, okay, what would Rabbi Yitzchak say if you didn't have intent at all? What would Rabbi Yitzchak say if you didn't intend on borrowing or eating or utilizing those two sources of honey that's in the beehive? Answers the Gemara, Aser. It would have been Aser, even according to Rabbi Yossi, even according to Rabbi Yitzchak. So it says the Gemara, Ihachi, if that's true, then I don't understand something. Hadetani ubilvad shelo yiskavein latzud. If you're saying that there's a difference between your kavana, that in one case you're chashiv alayhu, you're thinking about it and therefore it's mutter, and in another case you're not thinking about it and therefore it would be aser according to Rabbi Yitzchak. So then, this is a very well-known application in Shas, liflog v'lisnei b'didam. Liflog v'lisnei b'didam means the Gemara should have made a distinction. What should have been the distinction of the Gemara? The Gemara should have said as follows, 6-7 lines from the top, Mem Gimel Amud Beis. B'med dvarim amurim. When is it that it's mutter? When you had intent about the shtei chalos, about these two collections of honey that are in the beehive. Aval lo chishev alehen aser. But had it been that you had no intention to eat it, then it should not be allowed. But it didn't say that. So what does that mean that it didn't say that? Why does the Gemara not distinguish when it's discussing this case? So answers the Gemara as follows. So kamashmal, and what's implied from here? Afal pisha chishev alehen, that even if your intention was to eat of the shtei chalos, and therefore you can cover the beehive, but ubilvad shelo yiskavein latzud, but that's only true if you don't have kavana to trap. But the Gemara says money. Whose shita is that? That's like taking from two completely different worlds. Why? Reb Shimon. If you're talking about the shita of Reb Shimon, if you want to say this case is like Reb Shimon, that doesn't work because lesle muksa. Because Reb Shimon, who holds that there's no muksa, he doesn't need you to be choshev alehen. You don't have to have intent. There's no muksa. So the choshev alehen doesn't work according to Reb Shimon. Reb Yehuda, if it's Reb Yehuda, kilo miskavein, my have. Even if he doesn't have kavana, no kavana. Why? Because what does he hold? Hadavar shein miskavein aser. Even if you have no kavana for that, what's the difference? Rabbi Yehuda holds that davar shein miskavein is aser no matter what your intention is. Kivein latzud, it doesn't make a difference. So this combination of shitas, of chishev alehen, that I had intent to eat of the shtei chalos, but at the same time that I have to specifically not have kavanah to trap, that works according to nobody, not Reb Shimon and not Rabbi Yehuda. Answers the Gemara, no, it really does work according to Rabbi Yehuda. La'olam Rabbi Yehuda, really, it is like the sheets of Rabbi Yehuda. Well, if that's the case, let's go back to what bothered us about the sheets of Rabbi Yehuda. What then was the intention of this Torah Satanoim? Ubilvad shelo yiskabin latzud. Rabbi Yehuda, he doesn't care. It's a davar shein miskabin. What is? He holds davar shein miskabin as aser. So even if it's not your intention, what's the difference? Answers the Gemara, it does make a difference in regards to tzad, in regards to how intensively you trap the beehive. Because shelo ye'asena kimitzuda, it shouldn't be perfectly trapped where the net is literally laying on top of the beehive. No bees can get out. That's a problem. The lishvok lehu ravcha. Lishvok in Aramaic, shavak in Aramaic means to leave over. The lishvok lehu ravcha, you should have left over a little bit of space, says Rabbi Yehuda, so that they're not perfectly trapped. There should be some avenue for the bees to get out. Otherwise, Rabbi Yehuda would say that it's tzad because it's a psik reshe, not because of davar shein miskavein. As we pointed out from the Ritva we learned a couple of days ago, the principle of davar shein miskavein doesn't work in a case of psik reshe. So therefore, Rabbi Yehuda had to structure his case where it was not psik reshe, because when it's psik reshe, we don't talk about davar shein miskavein. Those two things are not in the same category. One precludes the other. Psik reshe precludes davar shein miskavein, and that explains how our brisa could be understood, how our story that we started with today about the bees, how it could be understood according to Rabbi Yehuda. The Gemara then asks the following, it's going to give now a second answer. We answered answer number one, that it's like Rabbi Yehuda. Let's try answer number two. Rav Ashi Omar, he says, no, you have a fundamental misunderstanding of what we learned. We were talking about, remember we said that it really depends if it's, that it doesn't depend, excuse me. We said that the beehive is permissible, bimosa chama and bimosa gshamim. Says the Gemara, you didn't look carefully enough at the language. Mikatani, does it say bimosa chama uvimosa gshamim? Is that what it says? Bimosa chama uvimosa gshamim? If we were to flip back, what would we see? We'd see the language that the Gemara quotes here. Bechama mipnei achama uvigshamim mipnei hagshamim ktani. The language is very unique. It doesn't say whether or not it's the winter. It says in the chama because of the chama, and in the gshamim because of the gshamim. So what does that mean? Here's how the Gemara explains according to Rav Ashi. The Yomi Nisan uv Yomi Tishrei, in the days of Nisan and in the days of Tishrei, where we have the following features: the ika chama, the ika gshamim, the ika dvash, where we have possibly sun, where we have possibly rain, and where we have possibly honey. That's all we're talking about. Namely, what's left out of here? The dead of the winter. We're only talking about times when there could actually be rain and actually be sun. In those times when the temperature is moderate enough, where we can have rain instead of snow, and where we can have sun at some point, that's what the Gemara is talking about. But Taka, it would be true that in the dead of the winter, that Rav Yitzchak would not allow for one to cover over the beehive. That would not be allowed. So there's a machlokas between these two cases about whether or not the dead of the winter is included. According to the first approach that we learned, which is actually nameless, we don't know who the Amora is who included this idea, there we would have said that even in the dead of the winter, Rav Yitzchak would have allowed for one to cover over the beehive. Masha Ein Kain, according to the second approach of Rav Ashi would have said that it is not permissible to cover in the dead of the winter, and he learned this from a diuk in the language that the Mishnah did not say Yimosa Chama v'Yimosa Gshamim, but rather a more voluminous language, a more detailed language of Chamin mipnei Chamin and Uvik Shamim mipnei Gshamim. A very beautiful answer. Kafta Raferach. We see two different approaches now in regards to Rav Yitzchak. Let's continue right in the middle of the page. Mem Gimel Amud Beis. Amar Lahu Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes says, Poku, you should go out the Amru and I'll tell you what's going on. But Amru Leila Rav Yitzchak. They said, Kfar Tirgam Rav Huna l'Shmaiseich beVavel. Your Torah is already being taught in Bavel. What was Rav Yitzchak's Torah? Rav Yitzchak's Torah, again, going back to that first of the longest lines, Ein kli nital ela ledavar hanital b'Shabbos. You can only take a kli if it's going to be utilized for that which is mutter on Shabbos. What case did they have in Bavel that they were talking about? Says the Gemara, to Amar Rav Huna, osin mechitza lemeis bishvil chai, ve'ein osin mechitza lemeis bishvil meis. Let's say that a person, Rahman al-Islam, passes away. And they pass away when it's very hot out and it's outdoors. Are you allowed to cover them? So according to Rabbi Yitzchak's principle, you're not allowed to take a kli and cover a mace on Shabbos because he's a mace, and a mace is muktzah. So therefore, it wouldn't work. Maihi, how does the case play out? D'amar Shmuel bar Yehuda v'chein Tana Shila Mari. Shmuel bar Yehuda, and also it was taught by Shila Mari. How does this case play out? Mace hamutal bechama, if the Rahman al-Litlan, a person passes away and they're outdoors and it's very hot. And there's a concern that due to the temperature that the mace will start to, unfortunately, smell, to emit an odor. So what do we do? So says the Gemara, we have a whole ruse. It's a whole workaround. And here's what we do. Shnei b'nei Adam, Meis hamutal b'chama, bayin shnei b'nei Adam v'yoshvim l'tzido. Two Jews, two Yidden go outside and they sit next to the person. That's not usher. People are not kalim. And they can go sit there. And what's going to happen? It's so hot out. Cham lahem milamata. It's very hot on the ground. So what do they do with the heat that's on the ground? It's too hot to sit. So then they're allowed to get pillows for themselves or kind of these mattresses. So what do? Zem maybe mita v'yoshev aleha. One guy brings out a little mattress and sits on it. Zem maybe mita v'yoshev aleha. And this other guy brings a mattress, and now they're both sitting outside by the mace with mattresses. But then, fine, they solve the problem that the ground is roasting hot, but now their heads are roasting hot. Now, they're not muksa. They could bring out something to cover themselves. That's permissible, but not for the mace. So let's continue with this whole approach here. What do? Now it's hot on their head. They take they take a blanket and they put it over their head to kind of separate the sun from their head. Then what do? Zeh zokef mitaso v'nishmat. One guy stands up his mattress and he slips away. The holech lo. The zeh zokef mitaso v'nishmat v'holech lo. And this other guy does the same thing. The nimtzeis mechitza suya me'aleha. And here we see that the shita of Rabbi Yitzchak that ein klinita ela letzorach Shabbos. How did we solve this problem with the mace? It was all through a workaround. We took two Jews. They were concerned about the mace, but it was muksa. A mace is muksa. So what did they do? They sat on the ground. The ground was so hot, they brought out mattresses. Oh, it's so hot above our head. They brought out sheets to put over their head. When they stood up in a way that they built a mechitza, just kind of on its own, just kind of derech agav. It's all a ruse. It's all a ha'arama. And that was able to protect the mace from decaying to the point that the mace would begin to have an odor, an unpleasant odor on Shabbos. And this was the whole workaround. This is Rabbi Yitzchak's shita, that we don't touch the mace directly. We don't even take a kli and cover the mace directly. It has to be done only for something that's mutter l'tzorach Shabbos. And this was these two gentlemen who decided to go sit by the mace. Very clever. And again, just a validation to the shita of Rabbi Yitzchak. Says the Gemara, another sugya about a mace, itmar. We're about 3/4 of the way down on Mem Gimel Amud Beis. Itmar, mace hamutal bechama. God forbid a person passes away and they're in the sun. Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, he says, Hov chomi mita lemita. You can't touch the mace directly because he is muksa. But what you can do, and this doesn't sound mechubad, but you can actually move the mace from mattress to mattress in a way where you're not touching the mace because the mace is mukta. And this is, as we spoke about the other day, in a slightly different vein, which is called kila achar yad. You're doing muksa, but you're doing it indirectly, and it's better to do it this way. So that's the shita of Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Chanina bar Shalamia mishmei de Rav Amar maniach alav kikaro tinok umetaltalo. We saw this earlier in the Masechta as well. What daf was this on? On daf Lamed. We'll see it again later in the Masechta as well. That the mace died on Shabbos. And when you have muksa that only became muksa after Bein Hashmashos and you need to move it, there's a loophole in halacha that you can put something that's not muksa on that which is muksa and then move both. So what they said is to put a kikar, to put a tinok, to put a baby on top of the mace. Sounds crazy to us. But this is what they would do if the mace died on Shabbos. If the mace died before Shabbos, you're not allowed to do that because that's a basis l'davar ha'asar. He was muksa from before Shabbos because he passed away before Shabbos. But if he passes away on Shabbos, then we can use this loophole of putting something that's usable for you on Shabbos on top of the mace in order to then be able to move the mace. These are very different shitas. The first shita, Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, says that your hovcha mimita lemita, that you can kind of, using kila achar, using a backhanded way, you can move the mace. And approach number 2 of Rav Chanina bar Shlamia, Bishmei de Rav, in the name of Rav, is that you can put something that's not muksa on top of the mace. Heicha deika kikar otinok, kule alma lo plige, the shari. And in order to explain this machlokas, the Gemara says as follows: where we have the opportunity to take a kikar, to take a tinok and put it on top of the mace, that's for sure mutter, no question about it. That's the ideal way to go here. However, that's shari. Everyone agrees. However, kipligi, this machlokas between Rav Chanina bar Shlamya, the second sheet of Yehuda Amar Shmuel, kipligi de lesle. That's when we don't have anything that's mutter to use on Shabbos. And because we don't have anything that's mutter to use on Shabbos, we're left with this secondary approach. Do we say hov chomimita lemita, yes or no? And that is a machlokas. Mar saber tiltul min hatzad shmei tiltul. It's very important language. We'll see this again in the Masechta. Is moving something in an indirect way considered moving something, in which case it's forbidden, like the shita of Rav Chanina bar Shlamya, who only allows the kikar or the tinok to be put on the mace and then you can move the mace? Or do we say Umar Savar Lo Shmei Tiltul, that when you're doing something that's indirect, it's not considered tiltul and therefore considered mutter? So that's the machlokas. Lema kitanoi. Maybe this machlokas between these two amoraim can actually be supported by a machlokas that's in the Tanoim. Let's see. What's the case? Ein matzilin esames mipnei adleika. Rachmana litzlan 1,000 times over. A person passes away in a house and then a fire starts. What are you supposed to do? Can you move the mace on Shabbos? Yes or no? You have to leave the person, God forbid, to not be exited from a burning house on Shabbos. A terrible circumstance. Is that mutter or not? So here the Tana Kama says you're not allowed. Amar Rav Yehuda ben Lakish shamati shematzilin esames mipnei adleika. No. Rav Yehuda ben Lakish says that it is possible that one should be allowed. He heard that it was permissible to do so. Hey Chidami, what's the case? Ikar kikar otino. If it's a case where we have something to put on top of the mace, so then my time of the Tanakama, why would the Tanakama say it's usr? We learned already that everyone agrees that if you have a kikar or a tinok that you can put on top of the mace, that is then permissible according to all opinions to move the mace. What's the discussion? Take a loaf of bread, put it on top of the mace, and move the mace with the loaf of bread. Everyone agrees that that's shari. So that if that's the Metzias, we don't understand the sheets of the Tanakama. Ideleka, and if we don't have a kikar or a tinok, so then my time of the Rabbi Yehuda ben Lakish. Why is it that Rabbi Yehuda ben Lakish would allow it? It should not be allowed because there's no reason for it to be allowed. Therefore, it must be that in the same way that we explained the Machlokes Amoraim that we saw earlier between Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel and Rav Chanina bar Shlamya, so too over here. What is the Machlokes? Says the Gemara, 3 lines from the bottom. Ella, what must it be that these Tanoim are arguing about? Elalav, it must be betiltal min atzad pligi. That we're talking about indirect movement of an object. Dimar savar tiltal min hatzad shmei tiltal. According to one shita, moving something indirectly is still considered moving something, and therefore this is the second shita. This is Rabbi Yehuda. This is the shita of the Tanakama, and this is the shita of Rav Chananya bar Shlamya, who do not allow for movement. Umar savar lo shmei tiltal. So maybe we should say that they're the same. Maybe we should say that the Machlokes and the Amoraim and the Machlokes and the Tanoim are the same Machlokes about tiltul min hatzad. Answers the Gemara, absolutely not. 2 lines from the bottom, lo, that's not the case. The Kulei Alma, everyone agrees, tiltul min hatzad, shmei tiltul. Everyone agrees that tiltul min hatzad is not allowed. Tiltul min hatzad is still called tiltul. You're not allowed to move something on Shabbos in an indirect way. If that's the case, then why was Rabbi Yehuda ben Lakish, why was he lenient to say that he heard that you're allowed to move the mace? Answers the Gemara with a psychology. And this psychology is found in a number of different areas in Shas. Today we're going to learn about one that applies to people who have passed away. Says the Gemara, V'hainu taima de Rabbi Yehuda ben Lakish. Why was Rabbi Yehuda ben Lakish against the principle of tiltul min atzad shmei tiltul? If tiltul min atzad is shmei tiltul, then Rabbi Yehuda ben Lakish has no reason to be lenient. Says the Gemara, the reason why he was lenient was because of the following. Last 5 words on the page. Demitoch she'adam bahul al meso. People are crazed about, and rightly so, they're crazed about family members, people who they love, who have passed away, whose bodies have yet to be buried. Of course, they're going to be crazed about it. Top of Mem Daled Amud Aleph, and what's the extension of this? Ilo sharisle, if you don't give him permission to do this Isser Derabanan of Muksa, to move the mace out of the house, Asi lechabuye, he's going to put out the fire entirely. Remember our case, we're talking about a house that's on fire and the mace is stuck inside. So if you don't give him the latitude to violate the Isser Derabanan, we are then concerned that he will violate the Isser Deoraisa of putting out the fire. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niyeh b'dvaro.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Internet delay.
I couldn't figure out how to unmute quick.
All right. Top of Mem Daled Amud Aleph. How do we paskin? Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yehuda ben Shila, Amar Rav Asi, Amar Rav Yochanan, Halacha Rabbi Yehuda ben Lakish the mace. We paskin like Rabbi Yehuda ben Lakish, namely we paskin leniently, namely we paskin that Adam is bahul al meso, that a person, they're crazed, and rightly so again, they're so heavily focused and concerned about the mace, about whom the meso is mutzal lefanav. They're obligated to bury that person, and therefore we allow a person to violate the Yisur Derabanan of Muktzah out of concern that they may otherwise violate the Yisur Deraisa of Kibuy, of Mechad. That brings us to the 2 dots and almost to another Mishnah. We learned in our Mishnah, that when one, in fact, as our Mishnah highlighted, does put a plate under dripping oil, one is not allowed to benefit from it. It's not allowed. Says the Gemara, Tana Rabbanan, Mosar Hashemen Shebener. What about the extra oil that's in a candelabra? We're not talking about wax here. We're talking about actual oil. The Shebe Ke'ara. We'll learn more about a Ke'ara tonight. It's a larger version of a candle. It's, if you can imagine, by comparison, a candle by comparison to a Yortzeit candle. The Ke'ara is larger. The Yortzeit candle is a little bit larger. We'll see what that actually means later. But Reb Shimon Matir, he allows this. Reb Shimon, as we've seen many times, this idea has to be drilled into our heads, that Reb Shimon has many shitas throughout Shas as it relates to Shabbos, And three of them we've learned already. Here's one. Reb Shimon Matir, why does he allow for the oil to be used? Reb Shimon does not hold of muksa. Really, Reb Shimon doesn't hold of every form of muksa. He holds of some forms of muksa. The second sheet of Reb Shimon that we've seen, that we actually paskin like, is that davar she'ena miskavein is mutter. The third sheet of Reb Shimon that we paskin like is malacha she'ena tzricha legufa is only an isser derabanan and not an isser deraisa. So we've seen these numerous times. We just kind of have to get it into our head that when we're in scenarios where we see that Reb Shimon is matir by cases of muksa, that's because he doesn't hold the muksa. And now we're going to learn a new Mishnah, Baruch Hashem, 7 lines down in Mem Dalet Amud Aleph, that will really dig in more to some of the halachos of muksa. It says the Mishnah, Metaltel in ner chadash avalo yashan. One is allowed to carry a new candelabra, but not an old one. What does this mean? You can carry a candle on Shabbos, mehecha teisi. So Rashi here points out on the top line of Rashi, Metaltel in ner chadash she'eno mos v'chazil ishtamushe. It is not disgusting, and it's chazil. It's easy. It's ready to be used. Used for what? It's a candle holder. What do you mean it's ready to be used? Says Rashi, critical words, lehedya shelo dalak bo ner me'olam. Only when the candelabra has never been used. It was never designated for this particular purpose, because had it been designated for this particular purpose, then we would not be allowed. The case of our Mishnah is when the candelabra had never been used. Continues the Mishnah, Reb Shimon Omer, because we just learned, as I just mentioned before, and we've seen many times before, that Reb Shimon doesn't hold of muksa. Reb Shimon Omer, Kol haneros metaltel and chutz min haner hadolek b'Shabbos. Reb Shimon says the only time we have an Isser Muksa, as I mentioned, sometimes he says there is an Isser Muksa, is when the candle's actually lit. Otherwise, it is mutter mosar Hashem and shebener. The candle itself can be moved, no problem at all, because he does not hold of Muksa. Gemara, Tana Rabbanan. This is a Tosefta in the next parak, in the fourth parak. And here we're going to learn a number of shitas in this regard, some of which overlap with our Mishnah. And as well, there is a father-son machlokas here, which poses interesting questions about the halachos of kibud avayim as it relates to paskening different than one's father. If a father and son are both a posek, under those circumstances, if a father paskins X, can a son paskin Y? Here the Gemara seems to assume yes. And it may be different in regards to the mitzvah of kibud avayim. If a father says to his son, you need to do X, that may be different. But here we're going to see that there are different shitas. Please hold on 1 second. Says the Gemara, opening 10 lines down from Mem Dalet Amud Aleph, Tana Rabbanan metaltel in their chadash avalod lo yashan divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda reflects the opinion of the Tana Kama in our Mishnah that one is allowed to move a candelabra that's never been used, but he is not allowed to use a candelabra that has been used. Reb Meir Omer kol haneros metaltel in chutz min haner shehid liku bo b'Shabbos. Reb Meir says that all candles are allowed to be used, except for candles that were already lit once on Shabbos. In this case, with this shita of Reb Meir, we're talking about a candle that was once lit on Shabbos, let's say Friday night candles, but it's no longer lit. Masha'ein Kain, the next shita, which is wild, Reb Shimon Omer, chutz min haner hadolek b'Shabbos, kavsa muter l'taltala. This we saw in our Mishnah. Reb Shimon is of the opinion, chutz min haner hadolek b'Shabbos, that Reb Shimon holds that one is allowed to use any candle, to move any candle, except for a candle that is currently lit. Kavsa, but if the fire goes out, so then it's mutter to use. We, of course, do not paskin this way. It is usher to use candles on Shabbos. We don't paskin like Reb Shimon. And then, seemingly, what would you think? The next words, aval, however, X, Y, and Z, seems very clear that that's a continuation of the sheets of Reb Shimon, right? So the Gemara is going to debate that. Very strange that we should assume otherwise. What is a continuation of what seems to be the shita of Reb Shimon? Aval kosu ka'ara v'ashashis lo yaziza mimakoman. Reb Shimon holds that I do hold, says Reb Shimon, an Isser Muksa in regards to a kos, a cup, a ka'ara, a plate, or a bowl, v'ashashis, a lantern. All of these I do hold of an Isser Muksa in these cases, even once the fire has gone out. We'll see why in the Gemara in a couple of minutes. Reb Elazar b'Reb Shimon. Reb Elazar was the son of Reb Shimon. What did we say by Reb Shimon? Reb Shimon was very makil. Reb Shimon, we just saw this previous shita above. It's mutter only when the candle, it's mutter as long as the candle is not lit, but if the fire goes out, it's allowed. However, with bigger utensils, Reb Shimon says mutter. Rebbe Lazar b'Reb Shimon Omer, mistapek min haner hakava, umin hashemen hametaftef, ve'afilu b'shah shehaner dolik. He says you're allowed to remove the oil from a fire while it's lit, even though it's going to lead to an earlier kibui, to putting out the fire a little bit faster. It cannot be that when you remove the oil, the fire goes out. That's kibui. That's not allowed. But Rebbe Lazar b'Reb Shimon goes to a very wild step to say that even while the fire is lit, you can remove some of it, let's say with a syringe or with a spoon of some kind, again, in a way that will not put out the fire. That is permissible even while it's lit. That's explicit. How can that be? How can it be that we are allowed to speed up the process of kibui? Take a look at Rashi, 3 inches above where we are. Dibur hamaschal min haner hakava, the fire that's still lit. Says Rashi, the kevan de kava beholech, since it's going to go out no matter what. Fires go out. It's just the way things are. The source doesn't last forever. Maybe if you have a 3-day candle that you lit on a Shabbos, maybe there you cannot remove the oil because the fire will not go out on Shabbos. At least you cannot remove enough oil that it would go out on Shabbos. But with a regular candle, let's say you have the paraffin candles or you're lighting with olive oil, so here you're allowed to remove it, no problem at all, because it says Rashi Alamdas, the cave and the kava beholech. Since the fire is going to go out anyway, lo mechayev su mishum mechaber. You're not changing the metzias that there's going to be kibui. The fire is going to go out with or without you. 5 minutes earlier, 10 minutes later, that's not an isser malacha. So that's why Rabbi Lazar ben Shimon, the son of Reb Shimon, he has a unique shita. Amar Abaye says, wait 1 second. Rabbi Lazar v'Rebbi Shimon, does he totally agree with his father? Rabbi Lazar b'Reb Shimon, savar la ke'avuha bechada, upaleg ale bechada. He holds like his father. Savar la, he holds like his father ke'avuha bechada in one area, upaleg ale bechada. But he argues with him in another. Savar le, middle of the page. Savar le ke'avuha bechada deles le muksa. He clearly agrees that there's no iser muksa. My gosh, you can remove oil while the candle's lit. Pashat that Rabbi Lazar, the son of Reb Shimon, agrees with his father Reb Shimon that there's no iser muksa. However, he does argue with his father in one area. His father held that you can only benefit from a candle once the fire has gone out. His son took it a step further. Rabbi Lazar b'Reb Shimon, the son, said, no, Abba, I disagree. Afal gav de lo kava. I could even take the oil out of the candle while the candle is still lit. Middle of the page. Now remember, I highlighted this when we were learning the Tosefta, that the next line seemed to be explicitly addressed by Reb Shimon. What did it say? That the cup and the bowl and the lantern, those are still muksa. Says the Gemara, my shnahani. Why would Reb Shimon say that these are any different? Reb Shimon doesn't hold of muksa. So if Reb Shimon doesn't hold of muksa, who cares what kind of container the oil is in? Who cares if it's in a cup or a lantern? It makes no difference. If you don't hold the muksa, you don't hold the muksa in this case. Answers the Gemara, Amar Ula, Seifa Asan Rabbi Yehuda. Ula comes up with this wild response that when the second half of Rav Shimon's statement was finishing, it wasn't Rav Shimon talking. Who was it? It was Rabbi Yehuda. What do you mean it's Rabbi Yehuda? It said Aval. That's what the Gemara asks right here. Says the Gemara, Maskif Lamar Zutra. What are you talking about? Ihachi, my aval. If you're in the middle of a sentence, I want to tell you something, but I also want to tell you something else. The second half of the sentence, you don't disconnect from the initial author. It's the same exact person. So how could you say that the second half of the statement, the aval, the statement that the cup and the bowl and the lantern are things that Reb Shimon didn't say? Pashut that Reb Shimon is the one who said them. Why are you going all the way to Reb Yehuda? That's ridiculous. Now, before we continue, we know why he picked Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda holds a muksa. That's obvious why he picked Rabbi Yehuda of all of the names in the hat. But it's a little difficult to say that. Here in the Gemara, therefore, pivots and says, Amar Mar Zutra, no. Come on, Ula. That's not the right answer. The Olam Reb Shimon. Olam Reb Shimon. Really, the second half of the Aval was, of course, the obvious and rational continuation of the Shita Reb Shimon. The Chikashari Reb Shimon. When was it that Reb Shimon was matir when a candle was no longer lit? When was that? That was bener zuta. That was with a candle that's particularly small. The daite iluya. You knew about that candle. You knew that it was going to run out. There would be some leftover oil, and maybe you'd want to use it for sure. Fine. However, aval hane, these utensils that are larger, the kos, the ka'ara, and the ashashis, the cup and the bowl and the lantern, those are much larger. On those, you don't intend for the fire to go out by the end of Shabbos, and therefore, avalhani, these kalim which are bigger than a fishe, which are much larger, lo, I would not have thought that those are permissible. Asks the Gemara, there's a stira. You just said that according to Rav Shimon, the ka'ara should be muksa. Why? Because it's such a big utensil that the fire is not gonna go out by the end of Shabbos. Ask the Gemara about Tanya, 3/4 of the way down. Mosar hashemen shebener v'shebe ka'ara aser, a din that we saw, that if there's extra oil, we said that if it's in a ka'ara, it's aser. Next 3 words, the Rabbi Shimon matir. Wait a minute. The Tosefta we saw in the middle of this page told us a din of Reb Shimon. And the second half of that din is a ka'ara is too big. If a ka'ara is too big, then you'll never benefit from the oil because the fire will never go out on Shabbos. If the fire is not going to go out on Shabbos, it's not dai to iluya. You never would have had in mind to use that oil. And if you would never have in mind to use the oil, it's muksa, even according to Reb Shimon. Yet we see here, as we saw on the top of the Amud, that Reb Shimon is matir with Mosar Hashem and Shebener. So it's a stira. On the top of the page and here on the bottom of the page, Rav Shimon is matir. He allows the use of the extra oil in a ke'ara explicitly. Yet the Tosefta that we saw, based on the understanding of Mar Zutra, seems to be that he says a ke'ara is too big and therefore it's muksa. So which one is it? Is it mutter or is it not mutter? Answers the Gemara, depends what kind of ke'ara. There are different kinds of bowls. You go to the store, you order soup. Would you like a cup? Would you like a bowl? It depends how big it is. It says the Gemara exactly that answer. Hasam, over there, ke'ara dumya dener. In the case where Rav Shimon was matir by the ke'ara, that was a very small bowl. That was a small bowl, just a few ounces. It's bigger than a regular candle. That's why we made a distinction between a regular candle and a ke'ara. But it's bigger than that, but it's still relatively small. But hacha and our Tosefta, where in the aval, in the second half of the statement of Rav Shimon, where he said that a ka'ara is going to be muksa, that's ka'ara dumya dekos. That's much bigger, and therefore that's problematic. Very good. Everything is very clear up until now. Good to go. This next line will clarify by the end, but the first attempt at understanding this line is difficult to understand, and the Gemara is going to present this. We're going to need the help of Rashi just to understand the words of the Gemara Pashut because it's so vague. Amar Abzera Pamot, if you have a candle, Pamot in modern Hebrew is a single candelabra. My parents just went to Eretz Yisrael. They picked up a candelabra for us, representative for the extra candle for our little son Avi, Baruch Hashem. So they bought a pamot. You go to the store and you tell they knot pamot, and then great, that's what it means. So we have a little candlestick. So Amar Abzera Pamot shehi likuba b'Shabbos l'divrei hamatir aser, for the one who allows that it's forbidden. That sounds esoteric. L'divrei ha'oser mutter. And for the one who says that it's aser, it's permissible. This is very difficult to understand without Rashi. I had no idea what this was talking about. Let's take a look at Rashi about 4 inches above where we are. And let's just keep in mind, we're talking about a candelabra that was lit on Shabbos. Now let's take a look at Rashi. Dibur hamaschil, l'divrei hamatir. It's about 2/3 of the way down. L'divrei hamatir, Rav Meir in the Tosefta, who was matir bener yashan, who said that you're allowed to use a candelabra, a pamot that's been used before. He says oser, even though it might be mutter in general, but behai the muksa machmas iser kedekatani le'el chutz min aner she'idliku bo b'Shabbos. He holds that it's muksa machmas iser. He who might have been matir. Why was he matir? The distinction between a new candle and an old one. That's because of what's called muksa machmas mius. Because once you light a candle, like the oil drips everywhere, it's gross, they were made of pottery, it's very difficult to clean, it's very porous, it's hot, it's absorbing a lot, and it's very difficult to clean. So Reb Meir holds that I hold a muksa machmas mius, and it's disgusting. Mius means disgusting. That's why I allow the new candle, but not the old. However, going back to our case, where the candle was still lit, I'm going to say that it's usher because while I agree of muksa machmas mius, I do not hold. While I say that there's muksa machmas mius, I do not hold of. I do hold a muksa machmas iser, and therefore, even for me, who would be matir, excuse me, let me say this a little more clearly. Even according to Reb Meir, who allows the old candle, the dirty candle, because he is matir, he does not hold a muksa machmas mius, he does hold a muksa machmas iser, and because the candle is lit, therefore it's muksa. And the second side, the next Rashi, L'divrei ha'oser, according to Rabbi Yehuda, ha'oser b'ner yashan shel cheres, Rabbi Yehuda says that the old candle is gross. He holds a muksa machmas mius, but he allows it because less le muksa in regards to machmas iser. He does not hold a muksa machmas iser. So we're contrasting two different types of muksa. It's a little interesting, and the Rishonim should speak about this as to why it is that there's this kind of interdependency on muksa machmas mius and muksa machmas iser, such that one who does not hold a muksa machmas mius, they allow you to move around to do muksa, they allow you to move something that's dirty, but therefore by definition they hold the muksa machmas iser. Why is there such a link? Very interesting that the Gemara assumes this. Anyways, that's what the Gemara says here. This is our initial assumption of the Gemara, but the Gemara now has a question. First of the longest lines, 5 lines from the bottom, Mem Daled Amud Aleph, the Memra. What's implied from here, and with the help of Rashi, hopefully we can see this clearly in the Gemara, this implies the Rav Yehuda muksa machmas mius islay. The Rav Yehuda holds a muksa machmas mius because he does not allow one to use the yashan, the kli that's yashan. He only allows the kli that's new to be used, the candelabra that's new. Muksa machmas isra lesle, and it seems to be that muksa machmas isra, he does not hold of that. Says the Gemara, wait a minute. I don't think that's correct. I think he does hold of muksa machmas iser. That when something is being used for an iser, that it becomes muksa. Where do we see this? The Tanya, the Brisa writes, Rav Yehuda Omer kol haneros shel mateches metaltalin chutz min haner sheiliku bo b'Shabbos. If you light a candle on Shabbos, you're not allowed to move that. Why? Because it was something be'iser, which implies, and now a contradiction between two Rabbi Yehudas. We have one Rabbi Yehuda that says, that's implied from our earlier case of the Pamot. It's implied from there that Rabbi Yehuda does not hold a muksa machmas iser. Yet this source, 4 lines from the bottom, the Brisa, seems to say that Rabbi Yehuda holds explicitly that he does hold the muksa machmas iser. So which one is it? Says the Gemara, because of this contradiction, we have to completely undo your understanding of the line of Pamot, the line of Reb Zera. Ela itmar hachi itmar. Rather, we have to reframe our understanding of this line of Rav Zera, Baruch Hashem, because the first understanding was complicated. 3 lines from the bottom. Amar Rav Zera, Pamod shehiliku alav b'Shabbos divrei hakol aser. Anyone who lights a candelabra on Shabbos, that candelabra is aser, even according to Rabbi Yehuda. Even according to anyone who holds about muksa machmas iser, that is completely not allowed to use that. And at the same time, lo hidliku alav divrei hakol mutar. If you did not light it, it would be permissible. It's made out of metal. So we're not worried about, look, Rashi points this out, we're not worried about it getting dirty because it's not like pottery. It's not like cheres that's very absorbent and gets dirty and it's hard to clean. Rather, it's very easy to wipe off the oil and the grime from metal. So therefore, there's no muksa machmas mius here, only muksa machmas iser. 2 dots on the bottom of Mem Daled Amud Aleph, 2 lines from the bottom. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rab. Remember that this is Rab. We're going to come back to his name. Mita sheyichda lemaos aser letaltala. Let's say that I set aside a particular bed in my guest bedroom. I'm keeping all my money on my bed. So says the Gemara in the name of Rab, that bed just became muksa, aser letaltala. Now you cannot move the bed. This is referred to as a basis ledaber ha'aser. You set it aside as something that is aser. Rashi here highlights the 6th line from the bottom. Rashi says, sheyichda lemaos. You said that bed X in my house is going to be where I keep all my money. Says Rashi, 6 lines from the bottom, Dibra Maskol sheyichda lemaos, mitzvah behazmana. Just by appointing the bed as the location where you're going to put the money, the bed becomes aser. Mitzvah behazmana be'alma. Even if you never put down any coins, the bed is going to be considered aser. No money's on the bed. There's nothing on it. Says Rav, it's aser. Asks the Gemara, Masi Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Wait a minute. That's crazy. Metaltalin ner chadash avalo yasha. You're allowed to carry a candelabra, which obviously was dedicated and muzman for the sake of lighting a candle. You can carry that. Now, obviously, you're not allowed to carry one that's yashan. Turning to the top of Memhem and Aleph, and the Gemara incredulously asks, Uman ner de lahachi avida. The whole reason why someone made the candelabra in the first place was for a candle. Ein hazmana gadol mizu. The whole reason we made the candelabra was for a candle. A bed that wasn't made for money, and you didn't even put money on it. You were just mazmin it in your head or verbally. Says the Gemara, we say that by the nair, which was made for that, kilo hidlik bashari letiltula, there I'm allowed to carry it. But mita delav lahachi avida lo kol shekain. Come on. If you're allowed to carry a ner chadash, which was made for being used for fire, then a bed which was used for sleeping, that you in your own crazy mind decided to turn it into your bank, there's no reason why that should be muksa. Says the Gemara, it recalibrates. You're right. Eli itmar hachi itmar. Let's understand the shita of Rav in the following way. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav mita sheyichta lemaos. A person dedicates their bed. They're mazmin. They say this bed is going to be used for all of my money. If in fact you actually do put the money on the bed, then yes, that makes much more sense. That's when the bed is asur to move. Lo hiniach lehamos mutar letaltal. Okay, very good. This makes perfect sense. Lo yichta lemaos. What happens if you did not appoint the bed? So then it's not about if you. There's a very subtle change in language here. In the first part of this answer, we said that if you were meyached the bed, then if you were hiniach, if you placed money on that bed, it would be a problem. Here in the second half, if you were not miyached, lo yichta, if you did not say this bed's going to be the bed where my money goes, then it's not a question of hiniach, of placing it there. Then it's just a question of yesh, whether or not there is on that bed. You go downstairs, you find a $20 bill sitting on the bed. The bed's muksa. The bed's muksa. Yesh alehamos asur letaltala. You're not allowed to move it. Ein alehamos mutar letaltala. Vehu, and this is only true, shelo hayu aleha bein hashmashos. This is only true if it was not yet there during bein hashmashos. Because if in fact, if it was there before bein hashmashos, then as we learned, if there was money there from before bein hashmashos, there would be no leniencies whatsoever. The bed is completely. Omar Ula says, wait a second, I have a question for you. Masib Rebbe Lazar. We're going to go straight to the last word on the page, and then we'll pause for the night. He asks the following question. Muchni, if you have a wheel of a wagon, muchni shela, the wheel of a carriage. Bizman shehi nishmetes, if the wheel is detachable, this is what we have on a lot of our bicycles. One of the wheels, the front wheel, is often detachable, so people are less inclined to steal the bike. They have a quick release. You peel it out, you pull it off the hook, and you're totally fine. Great. So let's say that this was a common construction. They would make a hole in the wheel. They would insert a piece of wood through the hole, and then stick a bar through the extension that was on the other side of the disc of the wheel to make sure that the wheel wouldn't come undone while they were riding. That's a removable wheel. That's how they used to construct wheels back in the day. So if in fact that was the case, bisman shehi nishmetes, if the wheel is detachable, so then ein chibur la, we don't treat that wheel as attached. The ein nimdedesima, and we don't use it as part of the volume measurement of that carriage in order to establish whether or not it's the right shear to be considered too big to be a kli. We spoke about this, a shear of 40 sa, 40 liquid sa, which is 2 kurayim, which is 60 dry sa, and if we just don't include the wheel. And if you have 4 of those wheels, that's a noticeable percentage of the size of the carriage. And it's not going to be included in some of the measurements that go into whether or not there would be an ohel hameis. Ve'ein gorerinosa v'shabbos bisman sheyesha lehamos. Touching on our case here, that you're not allowed to move the wheel on Shabbos when there's money on top of it. Says the Gemara, ha'ein alehamos sharia. If there's no money on top of it, afal gab dehavu aleha bein hashmashos. Even had it been there during Bein Hashmashos, it should not be allowed. That was the opposite of what we just learned. Right in the middle of the page, we said, Hu shelo haya leha Bein Hashmashos. Here we're saying, Afal gav dehavu aleha Bein Hashmashos. So Ula is bringing a case from Rabbi Eliezer that doesn't fit with our explanation of Rav. Answers the Gemara, Hahi Reb Shimon hi the lesle muksa. And the Rav, ki Rabbi Yehuda Svirle, Rav was holding like Rabbi Yehuda, who holds that there is muksa, and Reb Shimon, in this case of the wheel with the carriage, he says that there was no muksa in that case, and therefore even bein hashmashos it would have been permissible. So we're going to stop here, and we will pick up in Yirtzeh Hashem. What day is it? It's Monday. We'll pick up tomorrow night, 9 o'clock, on the top of Mem Hey Amud Aleph, learning Mem Hey Amud Aleph, Mem Hey Amud Beis, obviously. Above Amud Aleph, wishing you all a beautiful night.